when I'm up in the middle of the night with her, I'm not stressing about it because I'm so grateful. I spent 7 years hoping to hear pitter patter in my house. So, that's great. I'm only going to get to hear it for another couple of years and then that's it. So in some ways, it was such a blessing to have to work harder for it. Kind of like anything, like a career that you had to really fight to get into is all the sweeter.
All I see is blessings on blessings, yeah. I see the blessings coming our way, our way, our way. Blessings on blessings, yeah.
Shanti Lowry is in the house, the Cool Mom Code podcast. I have to say, I've stalked you a little bit.
Okay. You're the one.
I'm the one. Look, I'm the one that you keep on seeing, going through your videos.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
me. That's me. I admit it.
It's nice to meet you. You're a nice person, so I'm
Well,
not as scared now.
Okay, well, there you go. Don't be afraid. Don't be alarmed. I promise. I'm not threatening. I'm very excited to have you here. I feel like I've known you from the game.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know what I mean? When this came up and I was like, oh my God, yes, that's so exciting because I feel like I grew up watching you on the game.
Okay, that scares me a little because most people who say they know me from the game think I'm a really not a nice person.
I know that you're a character.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I was a little different.
Do you get that all the time though?
I do, especially after season 1, actually. Season 1 was legitimately hard for me because I was so happy to be a part of the show and honored when people recognized me. But the energy of the recognition was very hi,
no way,
timid, and yes,
they thought you were Mean Girl.
Yes, and someone even came up to my mom on a set and said, "I'd really like to talk to her, but I'm really afraid. Is she nice?"
No
yes.
way, and it's so opposite from who you are.
I think that's why it bothered me because I kind of really try and live in the world very open and nice and approachable,
right?
And so that specifically was hard for me. But I got a thicker skin.
What's been the worst experience though you've had with that? Like someone actually coming up to you thinking you were your character.
Okay, you know what? It was a game situation. I was on a totally different set, and I was playing a really vulnerable character. And the set was supposed to be closed because I was doing some vulnerable work. And this person came up to me in my private moment when I was just, get there and be there and stay there. And he was like, "Hey, Dion, looking good." And then went around the corner.
That's
and it
her
was
character
just
name, by the way.
Yeah,
Dion
that was my other character. Very different than the character I was playing. And it was also just the way he did it, I'm always here, popped in. It felt really invasive.
Yeah. Jarring.
Yes.
I think that's the hard part about acting though. I think when people perceive you to be a certain way, when that's not your true character, and that just means, is it also a compliment? Because you play it that well?
Right.
Right. It has to be.
I guess it is, right? And it is something we sign up for, so I try not to complain about that. I do sometimes want to make clear who I am, which is why I think social media does have a nice place. I'm not always a big fan of it,
right.
But I think in letting people see who I really am, that's a nice way of using it.
Well, I think anytime we can let people see who we really are.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's always a bonus.
Is it though? I also wonder about as an actor.
I like this.
Right?
I love this. This is good.
So,
tell me why.
I kind of, part of me is I want people to know that I'm not my characters, I'm this different person, but I think sometimes that's just vanity because as an actor, we should really be able to just completely be that character and have ourselves disappear sometimes. And if people know you really well, that's harder. I look at someone like Leo DiCaprio, right? He doesn't have social media. He doesn't have a lot of presence outside of his work.
Right.
And I think that maybe is why we believe him in so many parts.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know who Meryl Streep is.
Right?
I don't know who she is. I think of her because of the way she looks as a nice person. She comes across very nice. She's oh my God, I would have a lovely conversation with her.
Absolutely.
Just lovely person.
But we don't really know her.
But we don't know.
Yeah.
We have no idea because, like you said, the anonymity of her life is so secret, and all we see are the characters that she plays.
And that's why we buy them and everything too, because we don't see Meryl, we see this new character. So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know which one is more right or is more professional or whatnot.
I love that you took it to the craft though. You were like, hold on, wait a minute.
I know.
Maybe it's not so good that you know who I am, you know?
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
think that's probably a very good point, right? And a hard point, especially when it comes to your career. It's complicated.
Yes.
Let's take it back for a little bit.
Okay.
Let's take it back to Colorado. That's where you're born and raised?
Ooh, that's right. Yeah.
Born and raised in Colorado. How do we make our way to LA?
Girl, I do not know. I didn't know then. I knew I was in the wrong place. Not that there's anything wrong with Colorado. I still go back and I really love it. But I wasn't where I was supposed to be.
And how did you know that?
I'm telling you, it was like on a cellular level. I was born and I just felt like I'm supposed to, well, I hate being cold.
Right. Yeah, I'm from
to.
Michigan, so I'm the same way.
Right. We weren't supposed to be born there.
Everybody's like, do you ski? I'm like, no.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Don't need it again.
I drink the hot chocolate in the lodge. I'm very good at that. No, I just wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be doing creative things, storytelling things, being in a place where I wasn't an other. I was very other in every way.
Tell me what you mean by that, because I understand from the creative standpoint. Like, tell me, is there other ways that you felt other?
Oh, for sure. So my mom is white, and my dad was Cherokee Indian and African American. He passed.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. But I was raised with just my mom, and I was in a town of, I don't know the exact numbers, but it felt like 99% white,
right.
And not 99% not black, but white. I would walk into a room and I was just the blackest thing anyone had ever seen. I was the most other thing anyone had ever seen, and that gets tiring, and it turns into the way you see yourself too.
And you felt that?
Oh, very much.
But what age did you start to recognize that?
Sadly, there's a story. It was my first day of kindergarten, and a little boy specifically called me, sorry to use this term, but he called me a nigger, and he told me that I should go back to Africa. And I just never felt the same. It made me understand that difference that I was feeling and that I could sort of see was real, and there were words for it. And then I was also really poor in a very affluent town, which in some ways was a benefit. I had a great education, but I was an other,
right?
Always, with what instrument can you play? Well, I can't afford to play an instrument. I have to play whatever they'll give me. Are you going on the field trip? Well, I can't unless we get, the funds or something. It was just every day was an other situation.
So a couple questions here, literally jump out immediately.
Yeah.
As a parent, your mom, how did she tackle a little boy saying something so derogatory to her beautiful little girl at school? How do you parent through that?
That's such a great question. I remember the story so specifically because of that side of it. I told her, I came home immediately and I said, oh, Mom, this little boy said this to me at school, and her face is what I remember. She just froze. And as I remember, who knows how dramatized it is because I'm a storyteller, but she started to cry, and she grabbed me really, harshly or strongly, and just said, you are perfect the way you are, and you don't let anyone tell you that you don't belong. But it was her fear and pain in that moment that I saw, sadly, I felt like, oh, she's afraid he's right. She's afraid that I am other and I am wrong. And my mom parented the best way she could, which was just constantly telling me that other people have different viewpoints that are not always understanding and not always right, and that it's your job to, be proud of yourself and move through this world the way you want to. And if that means educating others, then you do that. If that means turning the other cheek, then you do that. If that means walking away, then you do that. Whatever you need to do.
Right.
And I plan to pass that along to my daughter, because I don't want her to think she has to stand up to every bully, or that she can't stand up to a bully, that she should just turn the other cheek. It should be what she feels in that moment.
It's interesting, though, because everyone who I have on this podcast obviously has a story.
Yeah.
And they obviously have a place where they come from, and they all have experienced something of their version of what grit is, right? And I think it's interesting because as we turn this 180 and now that we're parents, it's what you bring to the table as a parent as well. But for you, I feel like this is interesting because this is not in any research. This story is not in any research you can do. This is literally from us having an honest conversation.
Yeah.
But those sort of moments in your childhood, in such an early developmental stage of life, has to equip you with multiple ways of being able to handle the world.
Yes.
And
pivot.
So the pivot,
That's what
right?
I call it, the
pivot.
pivot.
Like, but like you're saying through your kindergarten experience that happens. So then you have to move on to now middle school, high school, right? Like you don't leave home until what, 18 or 17?
I left really early, actually. I graduated early. I think I was an advanced student, but my mom was a teacher. And also because I didn't have friends at school and I didn't have a connection, I just studied at home.
Right.
So I ended up graduating at 14.
Wow.
Very early.
Wow.
And then my mom didn't feel I was ready, nor did I. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be done with school in that form. I loved school, but I hated the environment and Colorado environment. I just knew I wasn't in the right place.
Because you felt other.
Yeah.
Always.
Always. And I just knew that as soon as I got through this, whatever system they had put me in, then I could move on to what I really wanted to do, into a place where I felt like I belonged. And I didn't realize how true that was, really. You know, as soon as I was able, I ended up moving to Los Angeles. And the minute that I got off the plane, basically, to live here, because I had been here before as a dancer, I would come out to study. But the moment I was here to live, I just felt like an entire weight lifted off of me.
Really?
Yeah, because when I walk into a room and someone goes, "Ooh, it's other, but it's not a bad other.
Right.
I've never seen that before. What are you? You have a story."
Yes.
In Colorado, it's oh dear,
Right.
no, you know,
it's a fear.
it's a fear.
Yeah.
And so here it was just so in your face, the exact 180 of what I was used to experiencing, that it was just magical.
I think it's kind of profound that you're able to recognize instantly the difference of an oh wow fear and a oh wow I'm intrigued, tell me more.
Yeah, it's obvious.
The fact that you are ingrained with that knowledge to recognize those two different oh wows, that's what I'm more fascinated with.
Interesting, huh?
You know,
Yeah.
because it was from a young age. From
Yeah.
a young age, you've literally been trained, right, to notice facial expressions on how people react to who you are.
Yes. Yeah, it's really interesting.
That's wild.
Do you not feel that you are as well? Are you not as in touch with that?
I'm in touch with human behavior, right? But I think my experience is much different from yours. My experience is I was always around kids of color. I'm from Detroit.
Right.
I never had to
weren't
look
an
for
other.
I was never an other. You know what I mean?
crazy to me.
But I always felt like, I still always felt like I was meant for bigger things. I was meant to be other places and see the world in a different way, not just stay in Detroit.
Yeah.
But not in the same way as how you must have seen it, especially because when you came home, your mom not necessarily looked like you, right?
100%.
And so that experience from her perspective of even parenting you must have also been different.
It was, and we talk about it now. She wasn't supported. She didn't have, a connection with my dad's family, so there was, that was gone. She didn't have really a connection with, a group of minority people in Colorado. I think she tried her best. She signed me up for, Native American this and Cherokee that and whatever we could find. But the truth is she didn't know what she didn't know. And, there are pictures of my hair just dried and awful because she was using VO5 and, whatever. We laugh as people of color, people who are white are like, what's wrong with that? Seems like a nice moisturizer.
Yeah, exactly. That's oil-based,
That's
right?
oil, right? That's good. So, she tried her best, but that was a part of the othering as well, is that I didn't have a Black upbringing. And so then I was a little bit othered when I came to Los Angeles as well, because I look the part. But then when you talk to me, you're like, now what now? Why are you pretending to be that? And I'm like, I'm not pretending. This is just who I am. I'm born and raised in Boulder, Colorado. This is what you're going to get.
Right.
So yeah, there's been a lot of that.
Does that create a challenge? Because I know in my former days, during the acting days of life, that always was the thing, right? If you were brown, Black girl, whatever type of tan skin, whatever curly hair, whatever it was, if you look the part, that's right, then you were in a box.
Yeah,
that
you had to talk like that.
That's right. You had to come in with your girl bad, da 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 da, and the whatever it was, right? That fit into that box.
Exactly.
Did that limit you in a way
Very
of like
much.
roles?
Yeah. Mara Akil, who created the game, was one of the first people who really put into words that she understood my struggle.
I love Mara, by the way.
Right? You
Love Mara,
can't
by the
meet
way.
Mara and not
Yeah.
love her, and that's just true.
Yeah.
She's just phenomenal. And she is a light-skinned woman of color who has mix, of different things and understands what it is to speak differently than the way you look.
Right.
And she wrote that role of Dion for me, actually. It was supposed to be a single guest star role. And she wrote it, I think, in part because of that. She understood that, like, this is a role for a Black woman that should exist on TV, and it shouldn't be in a box.
That's right.
Sometimes I get frustrated when people talk about, like, my Black experience, because it's so true. I have a very different Black experience, but it's still real.
Yeah.
We had a cross burned on our lawn. Can other people say that? Like, that's a Black experience.
Yeah, that is.
My mom got Ku Klux
That's a
Klan
true
literature.
Black experience, by the way.
It's a true Black experience. And, but it's different. And it's not more true than you're growing up in Detroit with.
Right.
It's just a different one. And
Right.
I love that Mara allowed me to play a different Black experience on TV.
Well, I agree with that. What I love about it is that we're able to see different forms of Black women on TV. Like you said, your experience is no less than anyone else.
Right.
You still what you are, and it was your experience. But there are so many people who can relate to that experience.
Yes. And more than you realize.
More than you realize.
Yes.
I mean, I meet women all the time. I actually have someone coming on in a couple of weeks who I can't wait to ask about this same sort of thing, because I think she was raised very similarly, where she has, she was mixed race, but she was raised mostly with her mom, not her dad around.
Right.
And her whole struggle through life, or not struggle, but her whole kind of, journey through life was always kind of finding where she was and where she fit in.
Right.
And it really wasn't until Black Lives Matter that I really feel like it took off for her in terms of her identifying with her Black side. So that's interesting, but everyone has this story that I feel like more people you would be surprised how many people relate.
Exactly. Hollywood has a tendency to tell just a few stories because there are only a few storytellers, right? There's a few people who are writing most of the scripts and a few people who are greenlighting most of the projects. And in their eyes, this is what a woman's story looks like. Right. Maybe there's 3 versions. This is what a Black story looks like. Maybe there's 3 versions. But when you start allowing different people to greenlight things and different people to write things, you realize there aren't 3 Black female stories. There's 300, 3,000,
Right. You're absolutely right.
And so that's why someone like Mara Akil is wonderful, because she has a different story and she's telling it her way.
Eyes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of that, though, from like a cultural standpoint, did you ever feel like it was hard to tap into those other sides of your history and your culture and where you come from?
Yeah.
Like what's inside you?
Yeah, I went through quite a journey when my dad passed. That's a very complicated relationship. And I wished that I had known his family more because I wanted to tap into that. At his funeral, I met wonderful, beautiful women, strong Black women that I'm related to, that I literally burst into tears of anger about, because I thought, think of the woman I could be had I known these women.
Right.
And now I'm not so angry. I say, this was my journey and this was all part of it.
That's right.
But at the moment, I just thought, like, all those times when I wasn't sure that a Black woman could be this, or I wasn't sure how to be this, it was like I had perfect representation. I just didn't grow up with it.
Wow.
So yeah, I definitely have had moments where
You felt
and
cheated.
when I first
cheated.
moved here, they wanted me to be a certain type of Black girl that I tried to be, and definitely that made me feel further from my Black roots, because it made me feel like I was pretending to be something. And then I just found my own identity, which, as I said, I have my own Black woman story, and I'm very proud of it, and I can just tell that, and that's enough.
What age do you feel like it all just like hit for you? Because
Girl.
I have like, I feel like every woman kind of knows.
Really?
Like, yeah, like it was around this moment where I was just like, you know what? I am who I am, and I am going to live in who I am.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm sad to say that I have 2 ages, and it's late. It's late.
That's most of the time it is
It's
late,
late?
just so you know.
Okay.
Most of the time it's later for women.
It was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
I think 27 was when I realized I was an adult and the choices that I make are mine entirely. And that was when my dad was passing, and I was in charge of I had a big role in taking care of that and taking care of him, and that just felt very heavy. And I realized that there's no one to call. That's you. You have to step into that, and that made me feel very like grown up in that moment. But then I remember I was 36 when I stopped caring about what people thought of who I married and what the way I lived my life. And when I say that, it's because I didn't marry a black man, and I had honestly really wanted to marry someone who was very mixed race, so that I had a child who was like, what is that? You know, we don't know what that is. But I fell in love with a white guy, and I love him, and we've been married for 20 years. And I had a really hard time sharing that with people because in the beginning I was ostracized for that, especially by the black community that I love so much, and I don't want them to feel that I am not part of their community. Right. So that was, I think it was very recently that I just decided it doesn't matter, you know, the people who know me know who I am, and that's enough.
That's right. 36, was that when you all got married?
No, we've been married 20 years, for real. That's legit.
Okay, so so you've been married 20 years, not just together 20 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's crazy,
right? We're very in the same boat, though, too. Yeah.
Oh,
So I feel that story.
Yeah,
I'm with
do?
that. I like that.
Yeah.
But, okay, wait a minute, 36, what was that pivotal moment? Like,
I think
what
we
was
were
that
trying
pivotal
to have a baby.
moment? Okay, so trying to conceive.
Well, we had been trying for a while, but I really don't know what it was. I just remember there was just something
inside you that was just like, you know what, now.
Yeah, I think I was producing something, and he was on set, and I'd usually like tried to keep my life very separate, and I just stopped. And when I stopped, I just said, that's enough. Yeah. You know, like I'm gonna be who I want to be and who I am.
That's right. That's right. For me, I have a theory.
Yeah.
Life and death are two pivotal moments, especially in a woman's life, that bring out a certain level of, I don't know, I don't want to say confidence, but a certain level of like, you know what? I don't give a fuck.
Ownership. Yeah.
That's a perfect word.
That's so perfect what you just said, because I just said when my dad passed and when I was about to have a baby. Those really
were the two moments for me.
Yeah.
When I had my first child, I literally, I swear, through that birthing process, I became a new woman.
Oh, wow.
And it was like a new, improved me. I was just like, you know what? I just gave life. And you know what? Now I don't give a... Yeah, exactly. And then my mom passed. My mom passed a couple years ago. And in that moment, the same thing that you felt, though, it was this whole idea of like, wow, life is too short. Live, love, whoever it is that you love, you know, and just like live in your truth. That's what it was for me. No more time for BS, and no more time for anyone else's BS in my life.
Yes.
Live in my truth, and whoever doesn't accept it, goodbye.
I don't need you anyway.
Goodbye.
Yes.
Like, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Nice knowing you. Bye-bye. You know, and I think those are two things. So that's my theory. So it's interesting that for you, it's very close to that.
I very much validated that feeling, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a moment.
I think actually having my daughter really did give me a whole different set of confidence. Like I definitely walk through the world differently now that I've had her, which bothers me to say, in all honesty, because
why?
Because I had a hard time conceiving, and a lot of people did through that journey, people would say, oh, you can't understand. You haven't had a child. When you have a child, you'll understand. All of that kind of stuff.
But do you understand that statement now?
I do.
Okay.
And that's why it bothers me, because it's like, you know, it's a club that I desperately wanted to be in, and people kept telling you it is a club that you can't understand until you're in. And I hate to say that I totally see that, you know, in a lot of ways, and that's hard.
Yeah, no, that is hard. I mean, I think I want to get into that journey, though.
Yeah.
More than anything, I want to get into that journey because I think what you've gone through, one, let me just tap on this. Yeah. I love the love. Okay, the love is really sweet. And the fact that you've been able to have a relationship and a marriage for 20 years in an industry that continuously challenges the fabric of what love is.
Oh my gosh.
And relationships are, I love that. So let's celebrate that for a second with a whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's jump into the other part. You find love, you guys are married, you're living the life. This is a question because this is something that I battled, or not even battled, but this is something that me and my husband made a pact on early on. You guys started trying, but were you ever afraid to even start having kids?
Oh, yes.
Because of your career?
I don't think it was ever like because of my career, but it was because of life. Like my husband and I met very young and knew right away that we wanted to get married, even though we were young, because it just felt like we wanted to start a whole big life together, right? Like we don't want to wait. We know this is the one. We didn't want to scare anyone, so we waited 3 years to get married after we started dating.
Okay.
But we literally said we were going to get married 3 months in.
Yeah.
You know, we knew.
Yeah. It was
And
for everybody else.
It was for everyone else's benefit.
For them to catch up.
Yeah, so you're scared.
it.
We'll wait a little
Yeah,
bit.
exactly.
Yeah. And wait, I forgot the question that you asked me.
So the question is, shoot, I almost forgot it too. No, the question is, were you afraid to have kids?
Yes.
Because a lot of times with working women, when you're building a career, when you're in it, right?
Yeah.
You push kids to the back burner because you're like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how I'm going to go through that. I don't know what it's going to look like my life after. How am I going to be able to juggle the two?
Yes.
So a lot of times I find, especially with working women, that you kind of push it off. You're like, it's over there for now. I'll get to it.
We made a deal that we wouldn't have kids for at least 4 years because we were getting married young. But that wasn't really about work. It was about like enjoying a relationship together.
Living.
And then when that 4 years was over, I was in the middle of doing a really big project that I was in love with. And
Wait a minute. You're like, when the 4 years was over, was there like a date where he was
No.
like, yo, the
Yeah,
4
he's
years,
like, hello.
tap, tap, tap. Remember that 4-year clock that we put on? No?
Not at all. Okay. I think we were looking back on this years later and being like, what happened? Why did we wait so long to try?
Right.
There really wasn't like a conversation of, I'm afraid of this or I'm afraid of that, but we were so happy. Like in our life, it was so good the way it was. And the truth is, children totally upend your life.
Right.
And it can be in the most wonderful way, but it can also be in a really jarring way.
Right.
And so we were just in a really happy place until we were like, okay, let's give this a shot. And I was older. I also have a condition called endometriosis. So when it didn't work for about a year, we went and got checked out.
Okay.
And I have a friend who they were desperate to have children, and it was actually the man who had a condition. They got it checked out and fixed, and a year later they had children. So that was the first question I asked when we went in was, I know that I have the obvious markers. Endometriosis is something you're born with, and it can affect the quality of your eggs later in life. And so they were always just assuming it's me. And I wasn't even that old. I was 36, you know,
Right.
and people are like, oh, after 35, throw her out.
Girl, let me tell you, the geriatric pregnancies.
Yes.
I'm like, can we
You're like, oh my
rename
God,
this, please?
please.
This is really not cool, guys.
It's not nice.
Not nice.
Yeah, so they never ever checked my husband, and they did a year of fertility treatments on me, only to find out that he had a very simple condition that could be reversed simply, and we would be able to conceive easily, supposedly.
This is interesting. They don't check the guy.
They don't check the guy. It's very, yeah.
All right, so this is a good tip, I think,
Yes.
to everyone who's listening, who might be experiencing any sort of beginning phases or infertility kind of issues or things or complications, to check both partners.
And double check, because I specifically asked them to check my husband, and they said that they did. And they never actually did. And so when I went back a year later, when we were talking with a new person, I was just like, can we double check that situation? And they were like, oh, that's obvious. We need to take care of that.
Right.
And in the meantime, they had given me a condition with all of the chemicals and all the things that they were pumping in my body. So it was a really frustrating situation.
Right.
And then, even then, we weren't able to conceive, which was maybe just a timing thing. We wanted to make sure to do it because I am getting older. And so we did decide to do IVF, which was a really hard journey to get to. I tell people the journey to IVF is like this winding road that when you start here, you cannot see the end of it. You just can't. It's impossible.
But why?
Well, part of it is because it's a little hidden. People don't talk about the process a lot, which is another reason I wanted to be really open about it. They just talk about like the first things, the steps to get in, because it's such a big process that they think they'll scare people away.
Right.
And that might be true, but it also makes it so you just can't even fathom the idea of doing it to begin with. It seems like just too much intervention. But we did several other things and it wasn't working, and we finally got to a place where we said, you know, we want this to happen, and I think we're ready to try this crazy intervention. And it was a beautiful journey with my husband, actually. It was hard. It was painful, but it brought us so close together. You know, he did the shots for me, which are awful. They need to work on that. Like they just definitely is a better way.
It's a painful process.
It's very painful. And I was listening to a female doctor talking about it recently, saying that if they were doing this to men, they would have come up with different processes.
This is
100
so
years
wild
ago.
that you say that, because I was talking to a woman yesterday. She's 13 weeks pregnant. And she was telling me, she was like, listen, if a man had to deal with half the things that we have to deal with as a woman, she was saying she was still nauseous even after 13 weeks. She's like, I can't wait for this to go away, blah, blah. She's like, if men had to be pregnant,
there would be a pill.
Nausea wouldn't even be a thing.
Nope.
There would be, that's done.
Done, yeah.
And I was like, could you imagine if a man had to bleed from his penis for 7 days every month?
Oh my God, there would be a magic pill to
Could
just get
you
rid of it.
imagine?
I kind of want
it
to.
It wouldn't even be a thing.
No.
I was like, dude, this is wild.
It's
But
really wild.
It's like you're saying.
Yes.
If IVF was something that men had to go through, you wouldn't even have the same process, let me tell you.
Yeah, they do a whole 2-inch needle into your muscle to inject oils that make a big pocket like this, like a welt on you that slowly dissolve in. And that's the point.
Wow.
Every day. But your welt doesn't go down. So it's just like you have like 5
So you
welts.
have to inject the 5 or the 2-inch needle.
Yeah, yourself.
And
the nurses, they really do act like, my husband could be a nurse at this point, because
Yes,
he had to really get into
hold on,
it.
clean the area beforehand and make sure hands are washed.
Exactly. I watched this really great podcast from a woman who was like, these are the tips, these are the do's, these are the don'ts. And I made him watch it, and I made him be very serious, because part of it is like, you can't go, ready, 1, 2, you can't be like, oh, did that hurt? You have to be very please stand over here, pull your cheek out, and you just have to be business
you have to be
about
serious.
it.
Yeah. I could tell that would be a very, if you have the right partnership, right?
It can
I
be
could
bonding.
see how that could be a bonding experience, because I think just the same as I'm sure you've experienced through pregnancy, having a partner who's invested in it with you is so much different than you just winging it on your own. You just in the bathroom, okay,
hopefully.
Here we go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of having someone with you who's able to walk with you through.
No, in some ways I feel like the universe, God, whatever you believe, really made this was the exact right thing for us, because we were so invested in every moment of the pregnancy, because we had worked so hard to create it, right? It wasn't just a bang, bang, boom, check, I guess I'm pregnant, and in 9 months, let's talk about it. We had been working at this for years, and then we went into that appointment together, and we, are doing these shots every night at the exact same time together.
Wow.
So he was just as involved in my pregnancy as any woman, I feel like. He was having to change his schedule, having to, he was really helping me make sure I'm eating properly and really taking care of the pregnancy in a different way, because we'd worked really hard to get it,
Right.
And so every morning I had an app that would tell me, how our sweet girl is growing and the different things that are happening in my body. And we would read those together. And I just don't think that if we had just been able to get pregnant, I don't think it would have been that same experience.
Yeah.
Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more. There's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. Head to factormeals.com/coolmomcode50 and use code CoolMomCode50 to get 50% off. That's code CoolMomCode50 at factormeals.com/CoolMomCode50 to get 50% off.
But talk to me about how long this lasted, because this wasn't a one and done IVF situation for you, was it?
It was. That was the blessing. It was not a one and done situation before that. We did a lot of other different interventions where you just do, pills or a shot or an injection. And
tell me more about that, though, because I want to tell whoever's listening, what are the steps that they can go through prior to IVF to try and get there if this is a concern for them?
Yeah. So first, go and get yourself checked out, because as I said, there are things that can be done to actually fix the problem without doing all these other interventions sometimes. But then after that, you can go to... I'm trying to remember what the name of this procedure is, but instead of removing the egg, which is what IVF is, they take your egg out, and we actually did IVF with with what they call ICSI, which is where they actually put the sperm into the egg.
Okay.
They don't just put them in a dish and like cross their fingers. They actually create
an embryo.
Right.
Right.
And well, it's a blastocyst.
Okay.
Anyway.
Sure.
Right.
You got that.
There you go. They create that and then they put it back.
Okay.
There are procedures that are way less invasive where they can just monitor and see, oh, you're ovulating right now. And then you go into the doctor at that time and they actually physically put sperm inside you and then cross your fingers,
You did all these.
We did everything.
You did all these steps prior to
Yeah.
IVF.
Yeah.
And this was a period of how long?
I think it was probably 7 years, but when I say that, it's not like this was all that was on our mind for 7 years. It was like, okay, I think we're ready to try. Let's do it. And then after a year of, trying but not paying attention, going, oh, we didn't get pregnant. Let's try a little harder. Let's get the app. Let's, check my ovulation. And then when we realized, no, we're trying pretty hard and it's not happening, then we went and got checked. And then that took, some years or a year. And then we did true intervention for a solid year and got really exhausted by it, the way that a lot of people talk about. We didn't get exhausted with each other. We tried really hard not to.
That's good.
Talking to each other, making sure we're still on board. There's not one person that's pushing more than the other.
Right.
But we did get exhausted with the process and we pulled back for a year. And then that was when we were ready for IVF because we both said, you know what, after this year of not thinking about it, we realized that a child is really, truly something to go ahead and work for.
Is there at any point where you got discouraged and you were like, you know what, maybe kids are not for us?
Never. I don't know why. I knew we would have a baby. There were times when you might have talked to me and I might have said like, I don't know what's happening. Why isn't this? But in my heart, my mom asked me that. She said, aren't you so happy that you have the sweetest girl? Did you never think this was going to happen? And I was like, no, I knew.
Yeah.
I knew from a child that I was going to be a mom and I knew that she would be my daughter. I don't know how to explain that, but I just did. But I'm really grateful that it happened that way. There were a lot of other ways that could have been much harder that I'm glad we didn't have to go through.
My mom always used to say that God can only give you the true gifts of your heart. And I always feel
beautiful.
like the fact that you just, I don't know, you the one who, I mean, you said something that made me think of. I just think when you say, you just always knew. 7 years is a very long time. Very long time to try to have a baby in all the different ways that you tried.
Yes.
That's a long time to put your body through a lot of different things. And just the emotional that you and your husband in a relationship go through.
Yeah.
Hunty, I've been married for, you know
get
what
it.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
that's a long time. And it's a lot of conversation. And it's a lot of stress. And then it's a lot of, like, figuring it out. And it's a lot of game plan. And it's a lot of, whatever it is,
But
compromise.
it's a lot of, it helps you, I think, because, you don't have one person who's like, oh, we're having a kid. I'm not really prepared. It's
That's
two
right.
people who have been really working toward
Invested.
it and thinking about what that means for their life. So when I'm up in the middle of the night with her, I'm not stressing about it because I'm so grateful. I spent 7 years hoping to hear pitter patter in my house. So that's great. I'm only going to get to hear it for another couple of years and then that's it. So in some ways, it was such a blessing to have to work harder for it. Kind of like anything, like a career that you had to really fight to get into is all the sweeter.
It's all much more worth it.
Yeah.
Just also a really quick note. If you're loving this content, our podcast with all of our amazing guests, we love sharing their stories. It really is such a joy for us. Then you're going to love thecoolmom.co. Make sure to head over there. It is everything that you can think of lifestyle. So we have fashion, food, we have amazing interviews with a lot of other cool moms as well. So check out all of our Cool Mom Co features, shop our merch, do all the things. Check out thecoolmom.co.
Let's fast forward.
Okay.
Baby girl is here.
She's so perfect.
She is 2 years old.
Yes, almost.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, February.
February 5th. Yeah.
February is her birthday.
Yeah.
That's right, too. She'll be 2.
She'll be 2.
How has life as a new mom been? Is everything rainbows?
I hate to say it, it kind of is. My life has been really dreamy with her. But again, I think a lot of it comes down to preparation and really being prepared to be a mom, right?
Yeah.
Being an older mom, I have, a more stable life.
Right.
My career is more in a place where, I'm not worried if my name's not on people's lips for 6 months or something, right? Like a lot of my character has settled into a place where like, this is the perfect time to sit at home and just appreciate my daughter's, words or, her walking. So it has been really dreamy and rainbows for me. My daughter sleeps well.
I love this.
I'm really blessed. My mom spends 6 months with me. She comes during the winters. And so, she also is very helpful. I have like a great village community helping me.
Yes. That's what it takes though.
100%.
I think people underestimate how much it really does take a village to help raise even one child.
Even one. Yeah.
I think
you
it's
have
a lot.
3. Like
I have 3.
Different conversation.
3 is a lot. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. But you know what it took? It took for me finding what village looks like because,
it's not always the same.
It's not always the same. And I don't have a lot of family around. And so it was like, what does that, how can I operate in this space? Yeah. And for a long time, it landed on just my husband and I. We were constantly, we felt things were always in the air, the juggle. You know how you say you felt settled?
Yeah.
And so for you, it's the perfect time right now to have her as a baby in your life because you feel settled. Yeah. For us, we just never felt settled in the beginning. It was always like, okay, you got this ball.
Are you going to catch that?
I got this one. I got this one. It was just, it felt like mayhem, And so I think just now as my kids are, they're in school, they all are in like, you know what I mean? I don't have to worry about, the being at home and juggling, like who's going to stay home with this and how do we find this? And,
but you're like years away from the sports struggle or the team struggle of
I'm getting in there.
Are you?
I'm getting in there. We're at middle school.
Yeah.
So,
driving to this practice, driving to that.
I haven't committed to any club sports.
Okay, good for you.
I don't know if I will. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm going to be that parent. That seems like a lot,
It sure is.
But
I think it depends on how passionate your kid is, right?
I think it depends. One thing I will say, if my child is passionate about it and she or he feels like they want to do it for a long extended period of time, I'll invest time.
I agree. That's definitely where I am. My mom keeps saying things like my 2-year-old daughter should be going ice skating or she should start figure skating. And I'm just like, in theory, I love the idea of seeing my little girl because she loves balance and skill work. I totally love the idea of it. But I'm not going to push her into being an ice skater that's like a crazy, committed, expensive sport.
That's right.
For no reason. Yes. Like if she comes to me at 5 and is like, Mommy, ice skating's for me, we can have a conversation. But right now, no.
I love that though. I mean, listen, I think that's always the challenge as parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is your dream versus what's their dream?
To remember you're still a person.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me because I was working so hard to have a child, right? And I love her. And she is my world.
Right.
But I am also a human person that has a desire to continue to be a separate entity.
Right.
And I love being a mom, but I also really love stepping out and still being Shanti, the producer, the actress.
Welcome to the reason why I created the Cool Mom Code.
I was just gonna say
that was my reasoning, my impetus to create the podcast in the beginning.
I love it.
Because it took me a good 2 years to find myself again.
Wow.
I had miscarried before my oldest was born. So before my first baby was born. And it was such a hard journey, right? Like, I was like, what the hell just happened here? Yeah. Like, how is that possible? I couldn't comprehend how I felt healthy and I felt strong and I felt all these things as we do as women. Yeah. And why did it not work?
Do you mind me asking how far along you were?
I was pretty far. Oh. I remember this so vividly. We went home. We always go home to my husband's family for Thanksgiving. And we went home for Thanksgiving. We told everybody because they say wait until 3 months, but it was like just shy. Just shy. We were like maybe a week and a half off. And we were like, it's just a week and a half. We're golden. Let's tell everybody. We told everybody, lost the baby in that week and a half span when we got back. And I remember feeling so devastated. The hardest part is telling people. The hardest part is going back and being saying
what happened.
So that's not happening. Psych. I don't know. What do you say? So that was the hardest part. And then I remember speaking with my grandma and I called her and she was like, girl, you come from strong stock. You'll have a lot of beautiful babies. Don't you worry. And I believed her I remember thinking in that moment, I believe you.
You're
I
right.
don't know why, but in my heart, I knew I would be a mother, and I believed her.
Oh,
Isn't
my
that
God.
crazy?
Yeah.
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 So same with you.
Yeah.
It's like you just believed it. And so there was nothing that could happen that
No.
could shake you away from the belief of knowing this was going to be a part of my life.
Definitely.
Don't know how I'm going to get there, but I
But I'm
know
gonna
this
get
is
there.
going to happen.
It's so interesting what you said about miscarriages. I also had several, but they were very early on. And then when we got pregnant from IVF, we told everyone when I was just 6 weeks, like the minute.
Wow.
And the reason behind it was I had a miscarriage when I was producing a TV show. And I literally had to be dancing in my, like, basically a burlesque show.
Wow.
And choreographing and being on stage and smiling at everyone. And I was miscarrying at the time.
No.
And it was so hard. And I felt so alone, you know, to be standing up there going, hey guys, how are you? Just really trying to pretend I'm fine. And then running to the bathroom and changing a pad and just like, also heartbroken. I wanted this baby so much.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, you know, if the IVF doesn't work, which it did on the first try, which was magical and amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
And if anything happens, which it totally can, and it's very possible, I actually think what I need is support. I need people to know what happened and to know that this is why I'm acting this way. This is why this is a hard day or a week or month. And I remember just thinking maybe that's more what we need to start telling women is that it's hard, but you need your support. But then hearing your story, it just sounds like it's personal. It depends on who you are.
I mean, I think it does. I think it
Yeah.
really does. We were so far along that I don't know. I don't think it matters. You know what? I think you're right. I think it
just
depends
hard.
on the person.
Yeah.
I think for me, when loss happens, I like to cocoon up. I like to go into my little cocoon. I want to figure it out. I got to get up in this brain and like figure out some emotions and all that stuff. Some people are able to like talk and they're able to pour out and they're able to like, you know, listen. And I couldn't do any of that. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear you. I just want to like go in here. So I think you're right. I think it's just a difference on what you need. But that's interesting to know, right? In different processes and in different journeys to know who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's also the beauty in having kids at a certain age in
When
life.
you're older, yeah.
Because you know who you are.
Exactly.
There's no more guessing. You know, you're already ownership.
Ownership. Yes.
You're already, you know, solidified.
Maybe
in
that's
your
why we
ownership.
become better at our ownership when we have a child, because we have to.
That's right.
You have to make those decisions and you have to believe in yourself or you can't get through a day.
Yeah.
So you've got to step up and say, okay, no, we're doing it this way.
That's right. And there's a little person who's literally looking at you,
Counting
for
on you.
everything.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was for me. For me, I was like, you know what? Hold up. This little girl is looking at me for everything. Time is important now.
Yeah.
What I do is important now.
What I say.
What I say is important now. It's
Yeah.
just everything. It heightened the stakes.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's exactly
heightened
what
the
it is.
stakes.
Yeah.
You know, and why not live life with a little bit more of heightened stakes?
Yeah. I love seeing a strong, beautiful woman who has a daughter too. It just every time you say your daughter, that makes me so happy because we specifically wanted a girl.
Yeah, you
because,
did.
Yeah.
Oh.
I really want to raise a beautiful, strong woman who's not afraid to be that and just be who she is.
Who is very similar, who walks in the light of you.
Yeah.
Right?
And hopefully bigger and better and more confident and takes
Heard another
bigger
quote
steps.
recently. Let
Yeah?
me tell you, girl. So they said, the mother stands still so the child, as they walk forward, they can always look back and see how far they've come.
You're going to make me cry.
And that was what it was for me. I always used to think, why is my mom in the kitchen all the time? I was like, dang, Ma, you always in the kitchen. Every time I turn around, you in the kitchen. You always cooking. Like, why are you just always in the kitchen?
Right.
Now, where's my favorite place to be? In the kitchen.
Because you're providing.
Providing. I feel like it's a source of zen. It's like my comfort place. I love creating in there. So not only am I nurturing my family, but I'm also creating in there. It's where my creativity lives and lies. It's like that fulfills me so much. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that that's what I saw my grandma and my mom always.
I think so.
You know?
Yeah.
What is it for you? What are those moments for you that just give you that, I don't know, that peace, that this equals love to me?
Yeah, I think it's when we have music playing in the house. My husband's a musician as well, and I'm a dancer, and so music has always been in my life. And so when there's just music playing and we're all just like dancing around, we have a lot of dance parties. there's something really magical in that for me. Like it's exactly where I'm supposed to be in that moment. You can't call me. There's nothing that could take me out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As crazy as this journey has been, as ups and downs as you've had, would you change anything about it?
I definitely wouldn't, because I'd be afraid I wouldn't end here. You know, every little thing you change, like it really adds up to who I am. You know, if I had been raised in a more accepting place where, you know, they taught me that I'm a beautiful, strong woman from the beginning, I mean, I really don't know if I would have become an actor. Like part of me, the reason I wanted to do that is I wanted to explore different people because I didn't love myself. And then after that, it was I wanted to,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on, because we're going to rewind that.
yeah, that's a big one.
Because when I hear stuff like, no, stop.
Yeah.
The reason why I explored different people is because I didn't love myself.
Yeah. I was definitely trying on different lives, different characters, different emotions. Like, what would it be like to be the popular girl in school, to walk in and have everybody say, hey? What would it be like to be more downtrodden than you are, to be the one who has no food? And I think it was because it was like, I don't want to be me, so I'd rather try other people's lives on. But then that moved into like a form of therapy of, I love myself. I'm good with all the sides of myself. Instead of hiding them, let's explore them. Let's pull this side out.
Was that still 36 or 27?
That's interesting. That's an ongoing process, I think. And I think that probably there were little jumps each time, but that's definitely an ongoing thing.
Did motherhood change it in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, it's the ownership. You know, you get more like, I think because you don't want to show like your child that there's something wrong with them. And so if you act like there's something wrong with you, then you're passing that down to them. So you have this ownership of, I am who I am, I'm supposed to be here, and I need to hold this space in the world. Yeah.
Now, here's a question. As you now parent your daughter, and not at 2 per se,
Yeah.
but let's fast forward to her teenage years or middle school or further along in elementary school. How will you parent her to make sure that she sees herself truly for who she is in the world?
Yeah, that starts now. That starts now by making sure she knows how smart and talented and capable and beautiful she is. And then that starts communication, just like constantly talking, making sure to understand what she is picking up of the world. Sometimes I think about the fact that we think we understand what our children see, but then we don't ask them. And sometimes they're picking up something totally different than what you think. And so if you talk to them, you might be able to correct that misunderstanding that they had. And so just really being communicative. You know, for instance, like what I took away when my mom grabbed me and said, "You're perfect the way you are," was there's definitely something wrong with you. You are definitely not right. Because she was so, you know, and as a child, you can sense more than what is being said.
Yeah, you can.
So just to be really communicative with her, to make sure that I understand what she's picking up and I can guide her in that way is the best I can do.
What in any way, I'm phrasing this question the best way I know how. From your childhood and from how you were raised, was there anything that you weren't given that you now know that you have to and must give your child?
It's interesting. I definitely had a hard childhood, but I also think my mom was like a superhero. So it's an interesting thing to be like, what should she have done or what did I need? But the truth is,
But maybe
I needed.
it's not her.
Yeah, I don't think
Maybe
it
it's
is.
something else that you were missing,
Or
that you felt lack of that you now know that you want to provide to your daughter.
Yeah, I guess that it's just an example of herself in the world. It took me a really long time to see anyone that I felt like looked like me or came from some similar situations that was doing something that I wanted to do in the world. And I think it's Junot Diaz who has a really beautiful quote that's I cannot repeat, but it's something about if you never see an example of yourself in the world, it makes you feel like you're a monster. And that was very much how I felt. Like no one looks like me on TV. No one looks like me running companies. The president doesn't look like me. The only people who look like me are not doing good things. And so I think that's something I will definitely make sure to show my daughter, because it's not that they weren't doing those things, I just didn't know about it.
Right.
So I want to make sure that she has heroes that look different, that are doing wonderful things.
Right. Because you felt like you were other.
Yeah.
You
That's I just don't want her to feel like other.
Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. Last question.
Okay. Oh, that's so sad. This has been so fun.
I mean, we can do this for hours.
Let's keep
if you
going.
want to. I could do this for hours with you. I love talking to you.
Thank you.
I guess my last question would be, it's a full circle moment, right? Like now you as a mother, everything that, your journey has gotten to you to this point. Instead of now saying, okay, what would you give your daughter? What would you give your younger self?
Someone asked me this recently, and I started crying because I literally thought about it, and all I can picture is giving her the biggest hug. Like, I'm going to cry again. If I saw her, I would like run across the room and just be like, it's going to be okay. And it's going to be more than okay. Yeah. You are strong, you are capable, and you just keep going, because that's all I needed. Yeah. I had the faith. I worked hard. I had the positivity, but there are times when you're just like, man, another knock. Yeah. And I would just give her a hug and say, it's going to be so fine. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because someone asked me this recently.
Yeah. What did you say?
I said, I am worthy. I'm worthy. Gosh. Of everything that I already felt in my heart, everything that we already know as kids. Yeah. And I think some people are born just knowing. They're just knowing that you have the power in the heart, and you possess a different type of light, right? And I think that for me, it was just about, as the journey I went through, I wasn't close to my father. It was like, whatever that was, I just felt like I needed someone to tell me, you are worthy. You are worthy. And so I love the fact that you say, I just needed a hug.
Yeah, I really did. That's so interesting that you have such a great marriage and you also didn't have your father in your life, or didn't have a strong presence. Oh, yeah. It was something I really wanted as a child. So I think that's another thing I'm so grateful to give my daughter, is this strong man, that a nice relationship, all of it.
That's what I think more than anything too. I think when I unknowingly, subconsciously found a spouse in life and a partner in life, it was because I knew that they would be a great father to whatever child I was going to have.
You too.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that sounds weird, but like,
very
you
Freudian,
needed, you needed that man in your life that showed you something different.
That's right.
Yeah. That's what I needed for sure. I mean, I met him when I was 19, so I definitely think we raised each other.
Yeah, for sure. Me and my husband, same thing. We met, I think, at 21. So same. It was like we very early. So we felt like we walked through life together in many respects. But yes.
Beautiful.
Oh my God, I could do this with you all day, girl. I really could. This was really special. And honestly, I really applaud you and I thank you for sharing your journey, because your journey is not necessarily so foreign to many people now. I think there are a lot of people who walk in this same light, and I'm talking about more fertility. In terms of who you are and everything. But there's so many women who sometimes don't see the light on how they're going to become mothers. Right. And I think hearing your story and seeing your strength, and more so than any of that, knowing the conviction that you possessed from the jump is something that I think is going to resonate with people, and especially people who can relate.
I hope so. I hope you don't give up. Your child's out there in one form or the other. I would have been happy to adopt or do anything. Just your child is out there if you believe in it.
I think you also have to be open.
Yes.
I think you have to be open to what I heard through your journey was that you were also open to trying different ways. Yep. This didn't work. Okay. Let's go figure this out. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, cool. Let's go figure this out. All right, we're getting close here. All right, let's take a break and then let's go figure
it out together with your partner.
That's right. Yeah. And you weren't alone. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for having me.
Come back anytime.
Oh, I would love to.
Thank you.
Thank you.